It's official. Video games are the biggest entertainment medium on the planet.
Thousands of titles.
Millions of players.
Billions of dollars.
But that's not important.
Because it's not the big numbers that make gaming great.
It's the experience.
You already know that, and so do we.
This isn't another show just trying to justify gaming. What's there to justify? It's awesome.
It is.
No, we're here to cut through the noise.
And speak from our hearts.
About the games that we love.
And even those that we don't.
Because we love games just as much as you.
From Wii Sports
to esports.
From the platformer
to the puzzler.
All are welcome in this Video Game Nation.
Paris, the city of love, a fashion mecca, a cultural capital of the world, and the home to a surprising number of video games. Modern Warfare 3, Remember Me, Sly Cooper, The Saboteur, yeah, remember that?
The city is about to get its most detailed digital recreation yet. But sadly, this won't feature, as the latest game to include France's most famous city is set during the French Revolution, which is almost exactly 100 years before construction of the Eiffel Tower began. So you'll just have to find something else to climb.
Although, actually, you can climb the Eiffel Tower thanks to certain portions of the game called time anomalies. These allow you to travel through time as the Animus, a machine that initially allowed Desmond and the Abstergo employees to inhabit the memories of people long dead, starts to act up, flinging Arno through different time periods. It's an interesting twist on the now standard AC formula, freshening up the campaign and presenting a fresh set of challenges for Unity's new protagonist, Arno Dorian.
Arno is very much his own character, with his own personal vendettas to address while serving the Brotherhood of Assassins. But you can customize his look to a greater degree than ever before, thanks to the game's new 4-player co-op mode. Unfortunately, this doesn't include changing his gender, which caused a bit of a controversy for Ubisoft when the mode was first announced. I guess we'll just stick to the boring old boy band version of Arno then, but how does he stack up against past series protagonists?
I think my favourite assassin is probably Ezio, mainly because he's a hoodie, and I'm from South East London, so I'm very comfortable around hoodies and knives.
The obvious answer should be Ezio, but I think my favourite assassin is Altair, because he just had no sense of humour about himself whatsoever.
Have you nothing better to do?
My favourite assassin from the Assassin's Creed series would have to be Desmond Miles, definitely, because who wants to waste time being an awesome ninja in Rome when you could just be some normal guy walking around a big metal office?
My favourite assassin from across the series, I don't know if he really counts as an assassin, because it turns out, this is a bit of a spoiler, but it happens very early on in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, is Haytham, the British assassin who ends up being a Templar. You have to stand up in the middle of the play and shuffle your way out to the aisle and just apologise to everyone on the way. I'd play an Assassin's Creed game where you just apologise to people for getting in their way, and you can sit and watch that play for 20 minutes before it starts looping. It's really interesting. It's one of the most interesting parts of that game, apart from the pirates and the boats and stuff.
Setting and characters are important, of course, and did I mention that the Marquis de Sade is one of the NPC characters that Arno will meet throughout his journey? That'll be an interesting cutscene. But the thing that keeps us coming back year after year to Assassin's Creed is the stealthy, stabby, free-roaming gameplay. So how has that been freshened up for Unity?
Traversal has been changed up for one thing, making it as easy to get down from great heights as it is to scale them. And combat has been altered so that there's less of an emphasis on counter-attacking. In addition, Arno can now enter a stealth state, where he will crouch and be generally harder to detect by enemies.
These tweaks may not sound like much, and they certainly aren't on par with, say, the introduction of naval battles in past AC titles, but they're small changes that make a big difference that'll feel so natural, you'll wonder why they weren't there to begin with. I mean, why a series that focuses on stealth waited so long to introduce a dedicated crouch button is beyond me.
Of course, whatever good points Unity introduces were somewhat marred by an unbelievably messy launch, which saw the game littered with bugs. Though at times amusing, these obviously weren't great news for people who paid for a finished, polished game, though Ubi is making amends by offering the game's first piece of DLC, Dead Kings, for free.
The Assassin's Creed series has settled into something of a comfortable rhythm now. It's unlikely that any one title will change up the formula in any kind of drastic way, but it does have the opportunity to add any number of smaller innovations through its lead character, any new weapons or gadgets they might have, and most importantly, the setting that they find themselves in. So we've had the Third Crusade, we've had the Renaissance, the American Civil War, and the French Revolution. What's next?
I think for Ubisoft, with all the problems that Unity's had, they should just go for the low-hanging fruit. They should go and just get on with it and do 19th century London. They've already got most of the chimneys that they need to make that happen. And they've already, I mean, for some reason, Unity already had everyone speaking in British accents anyway.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'd quite like them just to take a year off. Just, we've been playing them year after year. I'd quite like them to have a break, and then maybe they could, you know, in the next game, maybe they could give us things like characters that have skin on their faces, just fix little things like that. That'd be quite cool.
I'm a bit bored of the sort of historical settings, really. I'd like to see an Assassin's Creed set like in the modern world, like maybe at Alton Towers or sort of in a Westfield or a leisure centre.
Come on, Jurassic era Assassin's Creed, I believe in you. You know, Ubisoft really isn't taking that many risks with the latest addition to the series, but then again, it doesn't really have to.
A greater emphasis on stealth and less of a focus on small business ownership is probably the most welcome tweak that I've seen made in the series in the last couple of years. While 4-player co-op is a natural evolution of the franchise's multiplayer component, and as the first Assassin's Creed title on next-gen consoles, Unity definitely looks the part.
There's nothing here that will persuade you to sign up to the series if you've avoided it up until now, but hey, after 6 titles and multiple spin-offs, what were you expecting? It probably won't be the AC title that people talk about years from now, but as a perfectly serviceable entry to one of the most popular gaming franchises going, Unity kills it. Much like these guys.
Hello, television friend. Hi, Def. High five. Gaming assassins, those stealthy men and women who make moolah from mayhem and prove that all the best murders end with the words achievement unlocked.
Where corruption lies or money beckons, professional killers will be there to provide the most effective amoral solution and maybe even clean up afterwards.
But what's the fascination? Today I'm going to look at a few of gaming's most popular pros and ask 2 questions.
1. If we can do almost any horrible thing we want, from the Elder Scrolls to GTA, what's the appeal of being brutal but within set rules? And 2. What makes an assassin a hero? Mario's not a hero because he's a plumber who happens to save princesses. Are assassins heroes because it's their job to murder, or in spite of it?
Now let's meet Thane Krios, the Drell who prays before he prays in Mass Effect 2.
You first encounter Thane during a mission on Ilium. You've just blasted a horde of enemies to meet a murderous businesswoman when suddenly he drops from the ceiling, snaps a neck, shoots a guard, silences her, says a prayer, then starts up a smoky-voiced monologue about redemption and morality.
Check out what the other characters say after his first rampage.
Nice entrance.
They couldn't have made it more blatant that you're meant to like him if all the other characters had just dropped their guns and gone.
With a tragic past, strong faith and talent, Thane Krios is the Dalai Lama if he took the fist out of pacifist and shoved it through your face.
From the future now to the month of Nets, here's Corvo Atano, hero of Dishonored, developed in 2012 by Arcane.
Corvo lives in a world designed so you'll have more opportunities for fun if you don't indiscriminately slaughter everyone you meet. The plot discourages it too, with a storyline that's all singing, all redemption. He's a talented swordsman with special powers who's been framed for murder. Everything's in place for a nice night of precise, righteous revenge. Or so Arcane thought.
Developer Joe Houston tells a story about watching a game tester completely ignore this in the level where you're meant to go to a masquerade and find your target by asking questions. Instead, the game tester went up to a guard, shot him, and then everybody else. To quote Joe, the red splashes of colour and truncated screams settled into a steady rhythm, like the grimmest game ever of Dance Dance Revolution.
Like Thane, Corvo's been wronged, and you're encouraged to admire the style with which he dispatches his targets. In fact, the game actively rewards your cunning and moderation. The fun in Dishonored is meant to come from the idea that you're killing selected bad guys with real finesse. Make choices the game considers evil or sloppy, and the story changes for the worse, unless you like that game tester and don't care.
It must be hell to make stealth games. You spend hours writing this beautiful plot and then you craft these intricate little murder puzzles for the players to come along and assemble, and then in walks the jerk factor. You know what I mean. The part where you think to yourself, if you're not going to stop me, I've got a sword and I'm bored and now nobody has a head.
I suppose if you're going to work with morals, be prepared for your players to be depraved. The Sims wouldn't be so popular if they couldn't be tortured, and even SimCity knew that sometimes you just have to unleash Godzilla. Final assassin now, and it's that bald-headed, barcode-bearing Agent 47 from the Hitman series.
Agent 47 is what happens when game writers take a character who does horrible things and then go, no, it's okay, there are worse people, and you're going to kill them.
We usually meet 47's targets once, but we spend time with him, which makes them feel shallow and easier to knock off. In contrast, our boy has a tragic backstory, raised to kill, just like Thane, a love interest / friend, Diana, his handler, and an impeccable sense of style.
The Hitman games are also the least subtle about what they want you to do.
While Hitman Blood Money sees your people betray you and Hitman Absolution gives you the heartbreak of chasing down the woman you love, really, who cares? Agent 47 is a remorseless thug with an actual in-game checklist of the many and varied gruesome fates you can bestow on his enemies. Collect them all and get a free gun. Is it fun? Incredibly. But why?
Well, the satisfaction is creative murder. You feel naughty and smart under a thin veneer of being smart and righteous. Sometimes you're not even being clever, you're just following a template, and the template's clever. You're just happy you're coloured between the lines.
What makes an assassin a hero? Well, once you take away the tacked-on moral justifications for why they fight, it comes down to this. If they weren't assassins, they wouldn't be as interesting. Dishonored without an assassin is just Prince of Persia. Thane Krios would be a miserable single father, and Agent 47 would probably be the investment banker he dresses as. The plot says it's okay, they're good guys. The game mechanics say it's fun to be bad.
And it is.
Forget those other guys. Corvo is definitely my favourite, mainly because I can't think of any other game that lets you possess a fish in order to bypass a locked door. It's genius. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking parkour and co-op. Say, any of you guys behind the camera want to combine those two and go get me a coffee? No? Where's your team spirit, guys? Jeez. We'll see you after the break.
And then I said, oh, can I have a go? And then realised that actually all the amazing stuff was just pressing A.
Movies this Christmas.
Welcome back. It used to be that getting from one place to another in gaming was as simple as holding down the D-pad button in the direction that you wanted to go. Sometimes you could even hold down a second button to make yourself go faster. Crazy times. Nowadays though, it isn't just a case of getting from A to B, but how cool you look whilst doing it.
Parkour is just fun. It's just fun, right? I mean, you know, it's a way of traversing an environment in a way that, you know, speaking personally, I can't do.
I think parkour and a sort of action-adventure video games kind of have quite a lot, you know, in common in that they're both about sort of, you know, having superpowers almost, being able to climb and run and jump in really exciting sort of freeing ways. The difference, of course, with video games is that you can do all that and show off and do these really cool stunts without snapping your legs in half.
I think parkour is popular because it just looks cool. I remember like watching my friend play the original Assassin's Creed, and he was doing all this amazing stuff. And then I said, oh, can I have a go? And then realised that actually all the amazing stuff was just pressing A.
Well, I think the reason why parkour is such an important part of games now is that games, you know, as much as anything else, games are about exploring spaces. They're about architecture. And games allow us to do things in space that we can't do in real life. Not many of us can actually do parkour, not many of us can do free running, and if we did, we'd probably break a lot of bones and end up in hospital, which would be horrible. But in games, you can experiment with space in a way that you don't get hurt. And also, I mean, if you think about modern cities, they're actually really, really restricted spaces. You know, most of the places we think of as public spaces in cities are actually private. You know, if you go into a shopping mall these days, or even an open square, often those are owned by corporations that tell you no skateboarding, no running, no board games. You don't get any of that in video games. So there's this kind of sense of release, that sense of freedom in space, which we don't have anymore.
So I think games are always trying to let you do things that in real life policemen would shout at you for, such as driving cars very quickly, shooting people, and now climbing on the top of things like bins and walls.
The game that got parkour to the point where it is now has to be Prince of Persia: Sands of Time from 2003. I mean, that was the game which took, you know, sort of everything that had been worked upon by things like Mario in a 3D space, and then going back to sort of like, you know, some of the, you know, Tomb Raider and a lot of the sort of 3D adventure platforming games, and then it just threw everything into the mix. It threw in, and it made it a core part of its gameplay. It made getting from A to B in an interesting and dynamic way sort of the flow of the whole game, and I think that's, you know, you can see its influence in every game that's followed it since.
Well, this is going back a bit, and it probably shows how old I am, but I kind of feel like the first game that really sort of got parkour going was Sonic the Hedgehog. Even though it wasn't called parkour then, I'm not sure even parkour was called parkour back then, but for me Sonic was the first game, or certainly the first game I played, where you really kind of felt totally free within this environment to kind of go wherever you want and do these amazing jumps and, you know, go flying off into the air and bouncing off walls and know that you're going to kind of land safely and just have fun with exploring the environment.
I think Uncharted really nailed parkour because it makes you feel like you're actually in control of what you're doing, which is a really, really big thing. I mean, like with Titanfall, I never really bought the parkour stuff because it's just sort of, you press a button, you sort of run up a little bit, and maybe I'm just rubbish at the game, but I never felt like I was actually skillfully jumping from one thing to another. I don't know, I felt like with Uncharted, I was in control of the cool stuff I was doing.
You could almost go back to the first Prince of Persia, Jordan Mechner's original game, which was two-dimensional, so it was kind of, you know, it was more of a platformer really. But he used a technique called rotoscoping, which was, you know, tracing real-life movements and turning them into animations. Seeing those movements for the first time was like unlike anything we'd ever seen before in games. It gave you a real sense that you were controlling a human being with like real dynamics acting on them. So I think Prince of Persia was really, really important.
So Mirror's Edge is like parkour, the video game. It's the only game I think that's really nailed parkour properly because they've done it in first person. They show the hands, they show the feet, just the field of view that you get when you're really high up on buildings and you're looking down at your feet as you shuffle along. You get proper sense of vertigo. I think games like Assassin's Creed and stuff, they show the sort of fluidity of that movement through their animations, but for me, Mirror's Edge was the only game that really gave you a sense that you'd scaled something very big and that the risk of you falling was very real and that you could really hurt yourself. To
be honest, I'm not 100% sure that any game's completely nailed the parkour thing yet. There's still little bits where it might veer left around the building rather than run up it. You know, if I had a quid for every single time that in Assassin's Creed I've fallen onto a pile of soldiers rather than jumped across a gap, I'd have literally £7.
I think parkour is sort of starting to hit a limit of itself, but you know, Unity shows that there is at least somewhere for it to go. I mean, Unity doesn't quite succeed at what it tries to do, but it does try to refine the system in ways that I think in a couple of iterations they will nail. I think that's where it's going to go next. It's going to be more refinement rather than a sort of revolution.
I think parkour's maybe had its day now. I think it was a trend and it's hit its peak and it's starting to wind down. I think we're seeing more and more games that sort of have it as sort of a little side function, like Titanfall. You can like wall run and bounce off the walls, and I guess it's crucial to that game, but you're seeing other games just sort of add it in as like as an afterthought. So I think it's maybe cyclical in terms of popularity. So we've had parkour, we might go back to skateboarding after this, or maybe every game's going to have like yo-yos or something like that.
I don't think it's as much about the parkour stuff as it is about, you need narrative, you need the puzzles to be engaged, you need the gameplay to be good. That's what's going to make it boring. Although Ubisoft are probably the most likely to start to be accused of that, because you know, Watch Dogs is just Far Cry with a snazzy foe, which is just Assassin's Creed near some mountains.
In a game like Mirror's Edge, for example, that was the first one I remember really enjoying because it was about honing your skills and learning how to do things that were sometimes actually quite difficult. And then when you did master them, you know, feeling really proud of yourself and rewarded for that. And as you know, that is what real parkour is like, as I know from my own extensive experience of doing parkour. I don't know if you saw me coming in today, but I actually walked up the stairs 3 at a time. Yeah. I may slide down the banisters on the way out.
Multiplayer in the Assassin's Creed series has up until now been largely competitive. Game modes have focused on hunting other players down, looting the other team's artifacts, and working out who's a computer and who's a human, and then killing the human. Multiplayer throughout the series has been an interesting, if not exactly runaway success, and with Ubisoft's other flagship series, Watch Dogs, making much of its online about infiltration and hacking other players' games, would Unity opt for the same route? And the answer is... yeah. In Unity, all the Capture the Artifacts human hunting training games have been removed and replaced with a co-op experience, where friends take on full missions together, complete with cutscenes and instructions from that Animus lady. By the way, is the Animus lady watching everything I'm doing in the game? She must find it very frustrating. I feel for you, Barbara. I like to call her Barbara. So now you can team up with 1 to 3 other players and do what Ubisoft assumes you've always wanted to do. Play levels similar to the single-player campaign, but with a friend. Or friends. Other friends. Although it does take the server a while to find you someone to play with, which suggests to me that there aren't that many people playing? You can do missions or heists. Missions are exactly like those seen in the single-player campaign, and you'll find yourself doing what you've been doing in Assassin's Creed games since the dawn of time. Which for Assassin's Creed is 2007. You'll be killing someone, then tailing someone, then finding a letter. Oh, that's an interesting letter. Then tailing someone, then stopping someone be tailed or killed. Whereas in a heist, you infiltrate a building with your team without being caught. All for rewards like, I don't know, a new waistcoat, which I pronounce Westcott. Rewards that when they pop up on the screen, you think, wow, next time I'm desperately bored, I might check that out. But not now. Never now. The co-op missions are good with a friend. If you've got a headset and a bit of patience, you can work together in a way that's genuinely productive. One of you can distract a guard whilst the other sneaks around, or you can delegate jobs to each other like a particularly killy episode of The Apprentice. However, playing with a random person online has some very significant drawbacks. Most of the time you don't communicate, especially if the other dude sounds as if he's whispering down the pipe of a vacuum cleaner. In every game I played with a stranger, we weren't a team at all. We were 2 assassins working independently of each other who happened to be on the same job. The reward for playing together doesn't feel compelling enough, and there's nothing more irritating than the other player not being stealthy. Be more stealthy, other player! Come on, just hide behind that, don't go in, go, oh, tell him, Barbara! With 4 players, the game is downright fun, although it doesn't always feel as if there's enough mission objectives to go round. But still, it's frantic, and if you work at it, you can be good at different things, like detecting enemies, or running around reviving players like a stressed-out paramedic. Unfortunately, the issues that plague the game as a whole are amplified here. Yep, the frame rates and the glitches really make this a mess. I was in a 4-way battle in a crowded marketplace and it was fun, but it felt as if I was doing the whole thing in a bowl of custard. But I guess that if the game's a technical disaster, it's best experiencing that technical disaster with your closest pals. At least I think that's what they said on the Titanic. So, the multiplayer in Unity has taken a brave step in a new direction. I think that if the series keeps going, then this is a decent start. After all, there can be a lot of fun in co-op sneakery. It's just a shame that this comes at the expense of all the other multiplayer modes found in the earlier games. There are a few good missions to play with your mates, but it's more of a brief diversion than a massive game changer. Get me out of here, Barbara. Barbara?
Now go get that notebook.
Oh, there you are.
Let us know what you thought of Unity by using the hashtag VGN, and for exclusive behind-the-scenes footage and outtakes of the show, make sure to check out our Facebook page. I apologise in advance. You know, that's it for this week's show, but it's been fun. I think we should do more shows based in real-life locations. I've always wanted to go to Hyrule.
Thank you.